turn out to be a psychopath. Let's not wait for anxiety to grow glutamate and acetylcholine. We spend a large part of our lives creating a certain identity in public.
Hi Sid, hi.
Hello.
How are you doing? Give me one
I'm
second.
very good, man. How are you?
Yeah, so I was thinking of wearing my chashma today to look on the same levels of. But yeah, then I thought कि नहीं suit हो रहा है मुझ पे. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking your
Sure,
time.
man. I just
Let's
noticed that this pink light behind me looks extremely weird. I didn't notice it till now. Does it look weird for you?
No, it looks completely fine because I'm using a filter right now, so that's still
Okay.
yeah.
That's fine.
So before we start, tell me one good thing and one bad thing which happened with you today.
Oh boy. Good thing was that there was a patient of mine with multiple sclerosis. She got discharged today. That was pretty amazing because she'd come in with a lot of problems, and it's been like 5-6 days. Went home and she was doing much better. So I'm very happy about that. Bad thing. The bad thing was that my car had a bit of a scratch today. So my left mirror got scratched, and I mean it's Bombay. ये तो होना ही है. Like there's no. It's just a part of life, but that was really annoying.
Got it. Okay, so I will not waste a lot of your time and I'll jump straight to the questions. But before we jump to the more serious part of the conversation, because people already know what you do and you yourself are a great content creator. You have been to podcasts like Beer Bicep, on Tandaviya's show and everywhere. Yeah. So people know what you do, right? So before we go to that part, shift to this part, I want to understand what was your early childhood like?
So I'm from Kerala. So every year, thrice a year, we would go to Kerala. So all my summer vacations were spent in Kerala. And at that time, I was very annoyed about this. क्योंकि मेरे बाकी सारे दोस्त summer vacations में मिलते थे, cricket खेलते थे, they would really bond. And every year, like in 2 or 3 days after the summer vacation started, we would be off. हम लोग केरला में होते थे. But now when I look back, I feel like that was such a privilege to have a native place that you can go to and meet up with all your cousins and all your family and just have that kind of, you feel very connected with your own history. And I have extremely fond memories of Kerala. Like I still feel like I should go back every year. But yeah, that's kind of what my childhood was like. It was it was a lot of fun, and I think everybody kind of misses their childhood.
So what made you decide I want to pursue neuroscience? Like where did the first seed of thought came into your mind?
When I was in 8th standard, somebody gifted me a book on hypnosis, and that was the first time I started thinking about somebody's mind as a topic in itself, or just the idea that somebody could influence somebody else's mind and change the way that they think, which made me interested in the idea of what is free will and is there such a thing, and then I started getting interested in psychology and then psychiatry, and then I started getting interested in ये सब तो ठीक है concepts है, but actually क्या हो रहा है, like hardware में क्या हो रहा है,
right.
And then I got into neuroscience. I got interested in the brain, and tab tak I'd already started MBBS. It was kind of natural that I will gravitate towards neurology.
Got it. What will be your one piece of advice for the younger people who are about 14, 16 right now and wish to pursue the same as the career? What will be your one what to do and one what not to do advice for them?
So the one thing that you should do is understand that you will probably end up doing a job that does not exist today. So let's face it, like if you're 14 years old, by the time you're 35 and you're working and earning professionally, the job that you'll be doing probably doesn't exist today. Like it will get invented over the next 20 years. So I don't want kids to grow up thinking I will be this job, because that is very reductive. The only thing that they can focus on is being a very good learner. And then just learn whatever it is that life throws at them, wherever it is that life takes them. Just be very good at learning and adapting. There is no such thing as a wrong career choice. There is nothing like that. Like whatever is their interest, wherever they go down, that road will lead to another road, which will lead to another road. So literally just go where your passion takes you. And if you're good with learning, you will figure it out.
No, that makes complete sense. Out of topic question here, Sid, for you. Like, we usually hear that AI will take over jobs in the next 10 or 20 years. What do you
Yeah.
think will be the impact of AI on the medical field? Like, talking specifically about the neurology and.
So neurology is no different from any other fields. I think all subjects in medical practice will get equally affected by artificial intelligence and algorithms. It's already started. I'm not too worried about doctors losing their jobs because it's like I can see why that fear exists, but I also feel like AI will be a tool that doctors can use.
Yeah.
And the skill set that a doctor requires will change. So doctors will require to be more tech savvy. Doctors will be required to be more comfortable with how to use technology, how to use robotics, how to use AI. But other than that, there are some core medical skills that are not going away, like empathy, like being able to talk to a patient, uh, like being able to communicate bad news. So the doctor's job is not just to diagnose and treat. Like there's also a lot of other things which I don't think AI can do yet.
The human touch will always be relevant.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's very important.
Got it. Jumping straight to the more serious part of this conversation now. Have you ever
Uh,
faced anxiety or yeah?
no, I've seen some messages that had come up, and I think a friend of mine, I think
Sure,
Roshni
please go
had
for it.
said something, but I think I've missed it. Like it was very. Oh yeah, she said, "Who in your life gifted an eighth grader? Who gifts an eighth grader a book on hypnosis?" Yeah. So
That's a
that's a
very good
very
question,
fair
actually.
question. That's a
Who
fair
was this
question.
person?
To be fair, so I think what happened was every year at Churchgate, there is a book fair, like there's a book sale that happens.
Huh.
And every year
This
as
is
a
in Kerala.
ritual, no, in Bombay, in Churchgate, in South Bombay, there's a hall called Sundaram Hall. And every year there would be a massive book sale where books are sold by the kilo.
Okay, okay.
So you can just pick whatever books you want, and they are
You
sold
pay
by
for
the
the kg
kilo.
price. Okay,
Correct, correct. So
that's
every
so cool.
year we would, yeah, and it's amazing. So we would literally go there in our car with like 5, 6 bags, and we will just fill up everything that we wanted, and we would come. So I think that my dad didn't really notice that I'd also put into the list. So, and I mean, even if she would have noticed, I don't think he would have had a problem. But yeah, I do agree that gifting an eighth grader a book on hypnosis is not probably a good idea.
Maybe that makes sense. But if that turns makes you turn out into Sid Warrior, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, all's well that ends well, right? So, I
Right.
mean, I could still turn out to be a psychopath, but yeah, so far things seem to be going okay.
Let's not go to that zone a bit. Uh, um, yeah. So my
Yeah.
question to you was: have you yourself felt anxiety or depression or been into that zone ever?
I felt anxiety, yes. I have never been diagnosed with anxiety disorder. So there is a difference between the two. I think feeling anxious or being anxious is part of the normal human experience. You cannot go through life without feeling anxious because anxiety is basically your body acknowledging that you are not in control. That's what anxiety essentially is. When you say that there are situations that are happening that are not in my control. So I have felt anxious. Anxiety disorder is when that completely stops you from functioning and doing your everyday, fulfilling your responsibilities in the everyday life. So when that happens, that is when anxiety disorder is like that's when you diagnose anxiety disorder, and that's when you need treatment and therapy. I have never felt that,
Okay.
but at the same time, over the last 2, 3 months, I have been feeling more and more that I should speak to a therapist.
You
Not
should or you
because
have been.
no, I have never spoken to a therapist, except
Okay.
professionally. I have never
Yeah.
gone and sat in front of a therapist and talked about myself. But
Okay.
for the last 3 months, I have been feeling like I should, because there is a lot on my mind. Like I am juggling a lot of things, and
Right.
I'm starting to feel like it's almost like a preemptive thing. Like let's
Right.
not wait for anxiety to grow to an extent that it actually interferes with me. Why not talk to a therapist before? So that's something that I'm pondering about for the last 3 months.
How difficult is it for a usual person? I come from a tier 2 city, right? I come from Bhopal.
Mm-hmm.
So here,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, the situation is people are very nervous when it comes to speaking to a therapist. The first question is like, what will people think? So, from your point of view, where you have a good standing in your career, you yourself are a neurologist, and you are staying in Bombay, right?
I am.
So, how difficult or easy is it for you to approach a therapist, and what is in your mind when you think of visiting a therapist?
Bombay has some great therapists. I mean, because I'm in this field and a lot of my patients have required therapy at different points in time. I have come across some therapists that pick to them. I feel that, oh, this is a person that even I might be comfortable talking to. So if I do want to go to therapy, I definitely do have a few people in mind that I can go and speak to. But other than that, I think the stigma, frankly, it's not, I don't feel like there's any stigma anymore. This could be because I have been living in this environment for so long. It's become very matter of fact to me that, sure, like, of course, sometimes you would need to go and speak to a therapist because that's how I speak about it with all of my patients. So you can only speak about it for so many times before you actually absorb it yourself. So now for me, going to therapy is very matter of fact. If you need it, just go.
Got it. On that note, what will be your advice for all the people watching this live right now? And बाद में हम इसको upload भी करेंगे. तो what is your one advice? When someone is looking out for a good therapist, what should be the traits that one should look out for to be there in that therapist? Like, what should be the particular points?
So they say that finding your right therapist is as difficult as finding the right match on Tinder. You need to I'm sorry if I triggered anybody here who's been through the Tinder experience, but
I am one of those.
Oh, sorry about that to you too.
Not on Tinder, but in life, yeah.
Sure. Finding a good therapist is tricky because good is a relative term. Because what the difference between a therapist and any other branch of medicine is, I think that personality and their inherent beliefs and the inherent mannerisms also affect therapy. So it's not just about do they know how to diagnose you, but it's also about how do they speak and does their vibe match yours. A lot of therapy is about finding that connection. Right. So they need to be your friend, but at the same time, they're not your friend. They are also a professional. You need to trust them enough to really open up. But then they also need to be able to maintain a distance enough from you to give you the right advice. They want to, you want them to feel your emotions, but also not get too emotional because what's the point of that? You can't just be two people crying in a room. There are a lot of moving parts here. But in general, I feel like once you start going to therapy, and don't be afraid of changing your therapist if you feel like you are not absolutely comfortable, and don't be afraid of going back to a therapist. If you've tried out a few and then you realize that, the one that you had before was actually getting you and you want to continue that conversation, it's absolutely fine. I think it does take a bit of trial and error before you find out. And before you yourself know what kind of therapist you want. So it's actually exactly like dating.
Right. And how many sessions should you consider before dropping the current therapist and moving ahead with someone else? Ideally.
Oh, there's no rule like that, because it's like saying how many dates will you go on before you.
Okay, it's all with the vibe of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because are they hearing you?
Yeah.
Are they listening to you? And more important than listening is, are they hearing you? And are they able to help guide your thought process in a way where you feel like you're moving forward? That's how I feel like you can judge if it's working well or not.
That makes sense. Moving ahead with the actual serious part of the conversation now, finally, which is the Suicide Prevention Week, which was last week. So I just texted you regarding the same, that I want to have this conversation, and we happen to have this podcast.
Yeah.
So I want to understand, Sid, from a point of view of someone like you who had studied human brain very well, and you understand things from the medical point of view. What do you think is the first thought of someone who's going through the phase of thinking of taking their own life? I'm just reading out the question because I want this to be very particular for the audience. So what's the first thought of someone who's going through the phase of thinking of taking their own life? What is their mental state like? And also, are these signs generally visible?
So first of all, there has to be a trigger warning, because what I've realized is suicide is a topic that different people will listen to differently.
Right.
So like everybody who's listening, everybody who's here, just trigger warning that we are going to be talking about suicide for the next, I think, 10 minutes. And the reason it's difficult is because a thought might have come to somebody in the audience, or it might have come to, somebody that they know in their family or relatives. So it's always a difficult topic to talk about. But then it's always a difficult topics that are also really important that we talk about. So it's a difficult loop. Because it's difficult, people don't talk about it, and because people don't talk about it, people suffer, and then it becomes even more difficult. So break it down. When somebody takes their own life or starts thinking about taking their own life, what is happening is that they're basically going against a lot of very core biological drives, because there are so many safety mechanisms in place in the brain so that you don't take your own life, which, if those things weren't there, I think people will be taking their own life left and right, because life is tough. Life is really hard, and many times we don't really know why we are doing things. We are just going from one day to another, and there are so many challenges in life. Not all of our plans work out. We are constantly disappointed. All of these things are there. Strange thing is that when somebody, and the important thing is that when somebody decides to take their own life, it's not necessary that they are faced with a very unique challenge that other people haven't faced. So that's the first thing to understand. They may have decided to do this because of something that happened to them many times before, and it happens to everybody all the time. But at that particular moment, the safety mechanisms in their brain did not work enough. So we could get into the neurochemistry of it. Essentially, this is what it means. All of our self-protective drives, like all the things that make us want to keep ourselves safe, if all those protective mechanisms go away, then the smallest thing could trigger that. And that's why talking about suicide prevention is so important, because it's not about just that moment. We want to make sure that we help somebody way before that, because imagine that there are 10 locks that you have to unlock before you decide to take your own life. We should be ideally helping somebody when they've started unlocking the first 2 doors, not wait till they have reached all the way in. So that's what prevention actually should mean.
Got it. I have this one very common question. Post-COVID situation, people have usually started taking it very casually. As in, if I'm having a conversation with my friend, telling them that I have been feeling like this and that and a little down these days, जो बेसिक रिस्पॉन्स आजकल मिलता है लोगों से, दैट इज बेसिकली कि कोविड के बाद हाँ यार सबको ही हो रहा है, इट्स वेरी जनरलाइज्ड दीस डेज, और डिप्रेशन एंजाइटी वर्ड्स को बहुत जनरलाइज कर दिया है. व्हाट्स योर टेक ऑन हाउ कैन वी make sure that we give people the right attention? Like, what is the right thing to do at that particular point?
So the good thing and the bad thing about mental health awareness is that the words like depression and anxiety, the more we use them, the more normalized it gets. But at the same time, we often don't really use words in their absolutely correct meaning. Right? So we will the way we associate things is through or rather the way we see life is through associations. So we hear the word depression, we keep hearing the word depression, and we know a little bit about it. We know that, okay, people are sad, people are moody, people don't feel like going to work when they're depressed. So when they spot a pattern that resembles that even a little bit, they'll be like, oh, okay, you know what, I'm just feeling depressed. Or this guy's probably depressed. So we just throw around that word. I get why people say you shouldn't do that, but at the same time, it's not really their fault. I mean, not everybody is a psychiatrist. Not everybody has been trained to diagnose clinical depression. So they will say what they see. I don't think there's anything wrong in that. Like people should be allowed to talk about things the way they see it. That is their lived experience. It is our job, the job of doctors and psychiatrists, people who have a following and people who have knowledge and awareness, to talk about all of this. And keep talking about it, so that if from this IG life, if even 1 or 2 people go back understanding that not everybody who is sad is depressed. And makes sense. Calling everybody who is sad depressed is a disservice to the people who are actually going through clinical depression. So then those 2 people will stop saying that, and then they will spread that message.
There are different kinds of people, right? Introverts, ambiverts, and extroverts. Do you feel like there is a pattern to it? Like, any of these people falling under any categories are more or less vulnerable to getting into anxiety or depression? If yes, what could be the most appropriate way to guide them?
Actually, no. The difference between introvert and extrovert, it used to be very popular, but
Yeah.
that difference doesn't really hold true anymore because, as we understand more and more about human psychology, it's not about being an absolute extrovert or an absolute introvert. And you yourself would have noticed this, that you are much more introverted with some people, much more extroverted with other people. And you would be more extroverted a day after you've had a very, very good experience in life. You're on top of the world. You feel like sharing it, but you had a bad experience. You don't feel like talking to anybody. I mean, that doesn't mean that you are an overall introvert or an overall extrovert. So,
Right.
like the way that we deal with society is on a spectrum of comfort level. We are all somewhere on the spectrum, and that spectrum keeps changing. We keep fluctuating. So, it's very tempting to box people into introvert, extrovert, but doesn't really hold. People keep going, switching boxes. So it's a very fluid box. It's like a swimming pool where people keep going through and to and fro. But the rate of depression or anxiety, I don't remember reading any research paper that said that there's more of depressed people amongst introverts. I think it's a reverse finding. People undergoing depression would be less likely to want to talk to people, but the counter doesn't really hold up.
No. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I also want to understand what is serotonin. Like, am I first of all pronouncing it right? And so, what is serotonin in layman terms, and how do these serotonin levels play an important role in the journey of depression?
Serotonin is a neurochemical. It is a neurotransmitter. It is one of the I call them the big five. So dopamine, serotonin, GABA, glutamate, and acetylcholine. So these are the big five. There are many others, but these are the big five that kind of manage all of you, all of your emotions and your decision making. All of this happens because of the big five. So serotonin is one of them. It's very important. And the key role of serotonin is basically, if you think of dopamine as the happiness molecule where it gives you purpose, it gets you excited, it tells you, okay, yes, let's go do this, let's go do that. It's super, it's super enthusiastic about everything. Serotonin is like dopamine's elder brother. It'll tell dopamine, okay, calm down, relax, shant ho ja, stretch ke kaam kar. So serotonin is the modulator. Like serotonin will keep everything in balance. Serotonin is what adds value. If I show you like two iPhones, those two iPhones may not be of equal value because one of them is yours, right? So when that one breaks, you will feel more pain. But that value, how much value does something have? That is inherent from serotonin networks. So a lot of things, it does a lot of things. Serotonin is also responsible for psychedelic effects. So,
this is new. I didn't know about this.
Yeah. So
I don't know about a lot of things, and I usually get very anxious while talking to people like you who are very well, well graduated and well highly studied people. Because
oh God, no.
Out of my zone, I am more inclined talking to the media personalities. So this is new for me.
Yeah, no. So the thing with neuroscience is that nothing is really truly new. It's just, I mean, you haven't looked at it that way before, but then these are all experiences that we go through, all of us. So like serotonin has a lot of responsibilities as far as keeping you in balance is concerned. And to answer your previous question, in depression, serotonin levels do tend to drop, which is why when you give SSRIs, which is serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they increase serotonin levels. So SSRIs are one of the treatment for depression, apart from behavioral therapy. And from the medical side, if you give medicines that increase serotonin in the brain, which makes you feel better, and which makes you better equipped to handle the pressures of life.
What do you have to advise to people who are afraid of taking meds even today? Like, because there are different kind of people, right, with different mindsets. So what is your advice to those?
I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with taking medicines or not taking medicines. It's about what does the evidence say? So if you are in the 21st century, there is no real advantage in pretending to be in the 15th century. So if there are new advances in treatment, and if there are new, like, our understanding of a disease has evolved and progressed, and if that understanding has led to some medicines being discovered that could help, rejecting that outright, according to me, isn't very sensible. At the same time, I also believe that everybody does have final responsibility of their own body. So, like, I believe in autonomy. So if somebody says that I don't want medicine, it is my job as the doctor to kind of explain what is happening in their body, why this medicine is important, and what are the risks of taking the medicine and what are the risks of not taking it. And then it is up to them, because everybody has autonomy. Everybody gets to choose whether they want a medicine, whether they want a treatment or not. So I think that's absolutely okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think I've covered a lot of the questions. I just have one more very intriguing question. I want to understand, like, why are people usually, when they are depressed or they are on the verge of self-harming, why is it so that they are not comfortable in sharing their vulnerabilities with their close ones, with their friends or families? Rather, they choose to go out for calling on helplines, reaching out to these like events, and yeah, I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
It's not easy because we spend a large part of our lives creating a certain identity in public. Like we want people to see us in a particular way, and when you are going through a mental health issue, that identity gets broken, right? So now you don't see yourself in the same way, so you don't want other people to see you like that, because now this is not how you want to be perceived. And the more people see you like that, the more real it gets. So if nobody has seen you like that, then you could still pretend to, be okay. But then the more people know about it, the more real it gets that you are going through that. Now, this is a very unfortunate thing, because the struggle of pretending to be okay in front of other people often is one of the factors that makes things worse.
Yeah.
And opening up to somebody, not everybody, but opening up to somebody and taking help early on can actually reduce suffering, actually reduce the amount of time that you are struggling, and will make you better faster. But then we do tend to push things until it can't be pushed anymore. So I hope that these conversations do help.
Yeah. And I do feel that these conversations help, because when people reach out to you in the DMs telling that this helped them get better, at least at some point, it feels good. I want to understand, like, this is off the topic again, but can a very good friend replace a therapist, or a therapist is a therapist?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I wouldn't recommend considering any friend as your therapist. It's not fair on you. It's not fair on that friend, because everybody is dealing with their own life, their own struggles. And I'm a firm believer that friends have a big role to play in your mental sanity. Like, don't get me wrong. It is very important to have that social circle and a support group. And that support group means that you support each other for whatever it is. But a therapist is therapist. It's not the same thing. It's like saying that would you go to your friend every time your car broke down, even though they know how to fix your car? Like, you won't bother them with it. You will talk to them about it. You will rant about it, complain that yaar mera gaadi baar baar kyun kharab ho raha hai. But at the end of the day, you will still take it to a garage and get it fixed, and then go on a road trip with your friend in that car. So just like that, if your mental health screwed up, you can talk to your friend about your mental health getting screwed up. To expect them to fix it is not fair.
For the both.
Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely. So it's a two-way thing. Go to a professional when a professional is needed, but speak to your friend about everything. Just rant about it. It's great. That's what friends are for.
Right. Okay. One of the last two questions.
Sure.
Recently, words like manifestation and gratefulness have become buzzwords for Gen Z and millennials. What do you, as a neurologist, feel about these concepts? Do they actually work in one's life? If yes, why are people who are depressed unable to feel grateful or manifest good and happy zones?
So depression, quite literally, at a neural level, at a biological level, prevents gratitude, because in order to be grateful, gratitude in itself is a dopamine spike, and the networks that allow you to see things in a positive way, in order to feel grateful for them, get screwed up in depression.
Okay.
So it's very unfortunate when you tell a depressed patient, listen, you have so many good things, you should be grateful, because in a weird way that adds to the guilt. So that's not very helpful. But at the same time, gratitude practices are good. I would suggest that everybody does do that, because it's wonderful to be grateful as opposed to not being grateful. You do have a lot of wonderful things in your life, and what gratitude does is it increases the value of what you have. And
Right.
at the end of the day, if you're looking at all the things that you have versus all the things that you don't have, if all the things that you have are more valuable, you do feel validated. So in order to feel validated, just increase the value of what you have, which is what gratitude is. So that's a great habit. Definitely, you should do that.
Got it. And why do people say, usually neurologists and therapists usually recommend not going ahead for the instant gratification? What is up with that? Like, why do people ask you to prevent yourself from instant gratification and dopamine hits?
So primarily because all instant gratification and dopamine hits have an addictive potential. Your brain can become dependent on them, and because you get that dopamine spike, and if it's very easily available, you can keep turning to them every time you feel that life isn't working out great, and that becomes a coping mechanism, which can be dangerous. It doesn't have to be, but it has the potential of being dangerous. That's how addictions form. So that's why people turn to drinking, and that's why people turn to gambling, because whatever, it gives you that rush of dopamine and adrenaline that just makes you feel like you've achieved something great without actually having achieved anything. So it's a mirage, it's an illusion. You don't want people to live in that illusion. You want people to be able to actually deal with reality around them, face things head on. So that's the main reason why you should not get dependent on instant gratification.
One last question before we do the chat. This is a very personal question, Sid. So last year I was working with some brands. So I have this startup called Sport Media Company. We were doing some good work with some giant brands. After one particular project, I felt like I was working nonstop for the last 2 years. Like before this 1 year, I have been working for 2 years nonstop, giving it my all. The startup was very new, like a baby. So I never took a break, honestly. So post this one particular project, I decided to take a break of 1 month. I was like, I think I'm done now. I think I'm doing fairly well. Now I'll stop for a bit. And then post this 1 month break, I never actually went back to those high levels of energy. Even till today, I feel a bit underconfident in whatever I'm doing. It's not that bad now, but it is somewhere there. So I wanted to understand, like, how can I go back to those energy levels? Because I keep on blaming that I should have not taken that 1 month break. It ruined everything. So what's your advice for me or anyone like me who is listening to this?
So first of all, I don't think that it is possible to maintain a particular state of mind forever. It's not possible, because I feel like our state of mind is like a paper boat on the ocean. Like so many things are changing all the time, that to expect that we will feel a particular way forever is impractical. Biology doesn't work like that. Literally, all of your neural networks are changing, and to insist that you feel exactly like this 1 year after another going to happen. So the way forward is actually to figure out how do you evolve. So when you say that, this is how you are feeling today. So this is 2022 you. What is 2023 you going to be? And of course, every year is, there's no difference between 2022 and 2023, but it's a constantly changing scenario. Like your neural network is constantly changing. The only question is, how do you want it to change? You were feeling like that 2 years ago. Now you are not, but what are you feeling? You know what you're not feeling, but what are you feeling? What is your priority now? What kind of lifestyle do you want now? The better it is, the sooner you understand that, I think the easier it becomes to then understand now what life do you want to live. So even I have felt that because there are moments where I can work a lot and I'm very, very productive. And then there are days where I don't really do that much. But then I think you have to be very kind to yourself, because we are not robots. We will keep fluctuating. We'll keep going to and fro. It's like high tide and low tide. Let's not expect that we will be on high tide all the time. That doesn't work. Give yourself a low tide break.
Trying that. Okay. Thank you so much for this conversation, sir, again. And
Thank you.
I hope to do one more conversation real soon. And whenever I will be in Bombay, I'll hit you up. आपको थोड़ा सा परेशान करता हूँ मैं. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Guys, everybody who was in the chat, I know that you asked some questions. I don't think we had the time to pick them up. Apologies. We will keep talking. I'll come on live again soon. We can meet up there and discuss all these things. See you, everyone. Good night. Have a great day.
See you. Good night. Good night, sir.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye, Karunya. Bye.